the Radio Wasteland. Hello, my darling. Oh, hello from the Radio Wasteland.
Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to Radio Wasteland, the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm your host, Chauncey Hallworth, and this is my co-host, Kara Kittrick.
Hello.
Kara, do you have any news for us today?
I do indeed. So let's start with some conspiracy news here. Public records obtained by Vice indicate that Ring, Amazon's security company, made secret agreements with police departments around the country to advertise Ring security technology to private citizens who contacted the police department. Perhaps more significantly, it allowed police departments a portal by which they could access information from private security systems without a warrant. Although Ring and the police have defended the security system as a powerful crime-fighting tool that saves lives, privacy watchdogs are less than thrilled. A meteor capable of leveling a city passed by Earth last week, coming within 6 Earth diameters of striking the planet, so closer than the moon. The rock was 100 meters wide, nearly 5 times the size of the asteroid that exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia in 2013, with more energy than a nuclear weapon. This asteroid was not spotted until mere days before it passed by Earth due to its unusual orbit. And lastly, to follow up on a story, YouTube's plans to rein in conspiracy theories appears to be failing, according to the Huffington Post. Earlier this year, we reported that YouTube was now recommending fewer videos on topics such as flat Earth, anti-vax videos, and QAnon theories to users. But preliminary analytics suggest that this change has not altered the traffic of these videos, since people tend to go looking for them rather than find them in their recommendations, and the videos are still being monetized. Large conspiracy channels like Next News Network and Just Informed have only grown since the policy changes were implemented. Back to you, Chauncey.
All right. Well, getting struck by an asteroid, I'm going to hit this one first, because the outside two, they're really kind of the same, two sides of the same coin of the same topic there, it seems. Exactly. But I still wonder, I want the government to just come out and tell us, hey, if we were to get hit by one of these, or one of these was to be on a collision course, here's what we would do. Yeah. That's what I want to know.
I mean, there are plans like that, by individual agencies and groups. Yeah. I don't know that it's ever been widely publicized, and they are pretty vague. They're
yeah, but the scientists, people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku, they basically, they never say what we would do.
No, they don't.
They always say, oh, that would be crazy, but...
right, because they don't know.
Well, shouldn't they?
Yeah, probably.
Aren't they the sorts of people that
I see the problem, Chauncey. Yeah. I think, actually, people like Neil deGrasse Tyson love to talk speculative science. Pretty sure the technology is not there yet.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I guess the likelihood is unlikely, but, it's like...
6 Earth diameters, closer than the moon.
Yeah, that's true. But we are moving quickly. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, that's
yeah.
crazy.
I mean, in terms of space, the object of 2 little pinpricks colliding in this massive empty void, unlikely. But we don't even know how many asteroids there are out there. We have estimates, but they're almost certainly on the low side.
Yeah, I did see a ninja cut a BB with a sword on TV though, so I figure.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
There was this show. Jared's looking at me like I'm crazy. There was this show about like superhuman people and people who are capable. Yeah. And there was literally a guy who they shot a BB at him from the pitcher's mound, and he deflected it.
I know. I've seen it. There was a cracked article about it. I think his name is Machi or something, and he has like the part of his brain that processes movement or whatever has too many of those wires.
I'm sure he's fun at parties then. Anyone who's superhuman is also not fun at parties.
Okay, now.
All right, and then the other two, man. The first one, really cracked me up because they're just all like, we had your information and it was secret and nobody told you, but it's a great tool for fighting crime. Yes, of course it is a great tool for fighting crime because you're capable of spying on people, you know?
That was basically my reaction.
Yeah,
Just
like what a stupid answer, you know? And don't get me wrong, maybe that's the case. I'm sure a day is coming that we're all going to vote for that to happen. You know, a lot of people, I bring this up all the time. I think Fahrenheit 451 is a great example because we voted to outlaw books and that, and we're doing it to ourselves now in a lot of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, people are unduly terrified of crime, I think. Like,
I agree.
Even in high crime areas, people think that crime rates are at least twice what they actually are. Yeah. Just because that's people's intuitions they focus on. The scary stuff.
We're in one of those towns where the crime rate really has skyrocketed.
Yeah, it has.
You know, but I haven't been mugged yet, but, the day is young.
Indeed.
You know, I still have to walk to my car after this, so, we'll
Isn't your car parked 5 feet from the door?
No, it's like 5 spots that way.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, better call your family before you leave.
What do you mean? I'm the dad. Better call my family. What is my 24-year-old World of Warcraft playing daughter going to come walk me to my car?
I mean to say goodbye.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'll go with that one. Sorry, Jazz. Sorry, Jasmine, if you're out there.
but I like that you took the opportunity to belittle your daughter there. Yeah.
Only in her fighting capabilities outside of the World of Warcraft. Inside the World of Warcraft, she's a force to be reckoned with, I'm sure. You know?
Well, you don't know that. What if she's not that good?
Well, then she needs to knock it off because she's invested a lot of time into that, and she better be good, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think you should...
The mere concept of you saying that is pissing me off. I need to find out. I think you should find out.
This is important information.
Yeah. And then YouTube, this kind of goes in line with what's the conservative watchdog website...
I don't know. There's a million of them.
Yeah, there's one. Man, Jake told me about it. Maybe he's
Blaze. Well, the one Jake likes is the Drudge Report.
That might have been it. But they're talking about how they're coming at Google wanting to change. So right now, Google is considering themselves like an aggregator of information, and therefore they're not liable, but they're trying to prove that Google is pushing an agenda, at which point it would make them an editor, which would make them liable for certain information. Right now, their business model is maybe not matching what they're actually doing. And, of course, YouTube is owned by Google, and here's a prime case where one could say that this is a political move to get rid of these conspiracy things as opposed to a truth responsibility move.
Right. Well,
in this climate,
this is what I think is silly about this. Like, the two cannot be separated. Like, I don't think you can say, this is us standing up for the truth without, like, acknowledging that the truth is, by its very nature, a political concept that's sort of based on where you're coming from.
Well, I mean, facts, science is a big issue, Here we are not trusting scientists, yet, we work our cell phones,
Well, yeah, exactly. Science is politicized.
Yeah, it's,
That's what I'm saying.
So, how does one navigate that,
I think censorship is not the answer. I think the answer is people need to be more educated. Which is a whole... I think, they're solving the problem on totally the wrong end, is my perception of this.
I agree. All right, we're coming up on break here. Our guest tonight is Carl Bott, the owner of the FM station that we are on, KCNR 96.5 FM and AM 1460 is also Free Fire Radio and had a paranormal show called Outside the Wire, and we're going to be talking about his paranormal experiences, his experiences with other people's paranormal experiences here on Radio Wasteland. Go to commercial, Jared.
Visit Radio Wasteland at Instagram at instagram.com/Radio Wasteland.
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Carl Bott. Carl is the owner of the radio station that we are here on. We have you, dimly lit enough to the point where you will be able to maintain the anonymity of being the face behind our station, I guess. But, Carl, we really have you on the show here because you are the predecessor of us on this radio station here, that you had a show called Outside the Wire for years.
I did. I had it for for at least 1 year, maybe more. But first, I'd like to clear something up. It's my wife and I own the station.
Oh, sorry,
and
Linda.
she allows me
Oh.
to play behind the mic here.
Is
Chauncey,
that-
we just lost our progressive cred.
Yeah, it's
Well, I mean, you know, I knew it was
Well
close.
done.
Yeah,
I've worked so hard in one fell swoop.
I knew it was coming because she was standing over here in the corner shaming him. You know, it's like, sorry, Linda. Of course, you know.
I started it because I've always been interested in the paranormal, and I don't know, maybe it's because I have friends that were really big into are really into the search for Bigfoot. And I've always been interested in it. And so I had the opportunity when you have a radio station to do something like that. So on Friday mornings after our regular show was over at 9, I went into Outside the Wire. And Outside the Wire is a military term. You know, if you're when you go outside the wire, things are different. Things could be scary. Things could be dangerous out there, and because you're out there in ground that's not settled.
Right.
So that's where I went into the Outside the Wire.
Yeah, when Andrea first conveyed to us that was why the show was called that, we both Karen and I sort of peeked like, ooh, that's a great name.
It's a very good name.
And it was fun doing it.
Right. So are you, Karen and I have discussed that we're sort of healthy skeptics. We're into paranormal in this, I like to say that I came to it from sort of fantasy level. Like I liked movies and comics and stuff like that. And it led me to this level where I'm just I like all the fake stuff. Why don't I look into seeing if the real stuff, because I personally haven't had any experiences to speak of that were mind-blowing for me, you know. So
We're here because we want to believe,
right?
But we haven't.
What took? I know you have military experience. Maybe you have some stuff you're not able to tell us about that.
Well,
drew you to this.
There's always talks. When I was with the wing, that the Air Wing, that you have pilots every so often at the club talk about things they've seen out there that were kind of hard to understand. My experience with it. No, I haven't had a visitation or anything like this, but I think the closest thing I came to, I was driving across the desert in Arizona, and it was like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm just blasting through the desert, and you can see, of course, for long distances, and I could see these lights coming up on me that were fast. And then I started looking at the lights, and it wasn't like headlights from a state patrolman. It was like 4 lights across, and it was coming really fast. And I was thinking, maybe I better slow down here because it could be a state patrolman, and I was going fast. I was going really fast. And then I came down, how you kind of come down.
You were
and
going
dip,
alone in the desert.
alone
fast.
in the desert fast, and where there's nothing out there. This
Right.
is out past Quartzsite, if you know anything about Arizona.
I don't, but
It is out there. And so I start to slow down. I went down into a dip, and these lights were coming up fast. I mean, there was no roads turning off or anything. I came up out of the dip, lights are gone.
Huh.
And you know what? That was kind of strange.
Right.
And I was thinking, well, there's no place to turn off. And I thought, well, maybe, but there's strange people out there. Maybe they just turn their lights off and then they're racing through. Because
The
people do
darkness.
things like that.
Yeah.
or turned off some place shady to bury a
Well,
body in the
it
desert,
could be,
or,
but it was coming up so fast on me. I mean, it was.
You were literally being tailgated by Batman.
Well, it was coming up, and it was probably when I first noticed it. It's got to be a couple miles behind me, and just in a very, very short time, it was like half a mile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you could see the lights really brightly, and then they just disappeared. Now, they could have just turned off. They could have been anything. It could have been anything out there. But I always thought about that. It was always pretty strange.
Well, it at least shows that the interest is there when,
yeah.
when this happens and you go to the most extreme possibility, when stuff like that happens to me, I'm
It's
just
a
all,
UFO
maybe they
out
were
there.
abducted. Yeah.
Yeah, they're coming down the road out there. So, I guess that's probably been probably the biggest thing that, or the most obvious thing to me.
Now, you were a Marine.
I was.
You were a Marine. So, one of the big things for me is that these sightings from astronauts and military people, especially this sort of recent release of pilots and really people who are not only credible but trained to be credible. What do you make of those? Does that sort of pique your possibilities?
It's
or-
not just trained to be credible; they're logical too.
Right.
Aviation is very, very mathematic oriented, and they're always looking at their the instruments out there, at night, and they're always looking, of course, when they're going at Mach or close to that. They're always looking out in front of them. So if they're seeing things that give different radar signatures than anything they've seen before, in areas that shouldn't have radar signatures like that,
right,
you have to wonder about that.
Yeah.
And then when they see things out there that have come up within sight, visual, I can't. They're not kind, because first of all, you come back and say, hey, by the way, there was something really strange out there. I saw it, and this. It's not really. It's not conducive for your career.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's just admit that. You go out there and I saw something that was shaped like an 8 that was kind of was shimmering and going,
exactly.
and moving, kind of undulating through the sky. You don't come back and tell people that.
Right, unless you're convinced that your job you need to.
Yeah, we'd like you to talk to Dr. Proctor here tonight.
Right. Yeah, so that's definitely one thing that makes me, look at this stuff and go, there has to be some sort of something going on there. But it really kind of, Kara and I have discussed this before. If not UFOs, then, and not our own government, that means that another government is more technologically superior to us, and I find that hard to believe.
I find that hard to believe, too. And the other thing, too, is that a lot of these things occurred during times of conflict also. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, or if it's, just it was that time. But, ones that I've heard about and read about, it's been during the times of conflict where people are out there and things are going on.
Right.
Too.
So there's a stress to be taken into consideration.
There's stress, but it's also does that type of an atmosphere of anger and fear, concern, does that have anything to do with the fact that there's could be visitors? I'm not so convinced that we're the only life in in existence.
Oh yeah.
I'm not that.
No way.
Yeah, I'm not that. I don't think anybody really believes that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does anymore either, you know, and it's interesting how quickly things moved in that regard, because it wasn't, back in the 80s, even through the 90s, it was laughable, and on a religious level, it was a no, and now it's really sort of general, sure, there could be, and it really moved quite quickly that we caught up with what science and technology was telling us was potentially possible.
And the way the technology is growing here, it's not like, it's going to be 5 years with the technology we have now. Technology grows so fast, and it builds on itself so quickly. A lot of things that were just totally science fiction we're doing today. And it's going, and we're going past it.
Yeah, during the commercial break for the people on Facebook, I'm playing this Michiro Kaku speech, and in part of it, he's talking about how in 2013 they were able to upload a thought to a mouse.
Yeah.
About where the treat was, and they were able to upload it into its brain, and the mouse went and got the treat because they put the thought there.
Well, I think a lot of times you could be in a bar and somebody's uploaded a thought to your brain. From across the room.
Right.
No, I'm just, I'm kidding about that. Well, not really, but the
I think it's still analog. I think they haven't gotten wireless yet.
Wireless, okay.
They didn't beat
really?
it in there.
I don't know. You ever been at the hen house? Anyway, no, there are so many things going on. We were just talking about autonomous cars.
Oh yeah.
Now, autonomous cars were something so far in the future that when people thought about it, but now, they're out there.
Right.
What's the next thing that happens is autonomous aircraft.
Yeah, not only are autonomous cars out there, but one ran down a woman, and the whole operation was shut down and back up and running within 6 months. That has to show you that we're right on the brink of this happening.
I think we are. I just saw where General Motors has delayed their launch for a year. But there's places in California whose whole mission in life is, I think, was their business plan was to put Uber out of business with autonomous cars,
Right.
electric batteries, things, the cars that come to your house, and it's, they could do it for 20 cents on the dollar.
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of younger people, my kids and stuff, they don't want to be associated with the debt and the payments. They would rather pay, get what they needed, and move on and not be associated with any of that. They don't want to own a home. They'd rather not own a car. A lot of stuff like that. So it's part of this whole new
But
view online.
just think of how it opens up the world to seniors that that don't drive or don't like to drive.
Absolutely.
Now they can go out and they can go back and hey, I want to go down to the Opera House in Sacramento, and so something picks them up and drives them down. I mean, they can do it with a cab right now, but it's pretty expensive.
Right now, they just have
they don't have much of a choice.
Busing to the local casino. All right. We're coming up on break here. We're listening to Carl Bott. We're talking to Carl Bott. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what Kara and I might have been missing out here in Reading.
Oh, yeah.
You're listening to Chauncey and Kara on Radio Wasteland right here on 96.5 FM and 1460 AM. That's Free Fire Radio. And don't forget to follow Radio Wasteland on Facebook at facebook.com/radiowasteland.us.
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Carl Bott. We're talking about his old show, Outside the Wire, at this point. Kara and I have been doing this show. We are on, I want to say, we're episode somewhere around 125, 130. We're in there.
Well, that's great.
We've been doing it for a really long time, and we have had very few guests from Reading and from the area.
Yeah.
We've had maybe one or two from Mount Shasta and maybe one or two from Reading. Not Mount Shasta, but Mount Shasta.
The Lemurians?
Mount
exactly.
Shasta.
We were talking
Sorry,
about
I get
Lemurians.
Old Shasta, Mount Shasta, and Shasta
Right.
Lake. It's a mess. But, what did you have on your show? I know Lemurians. That's why we initially went after some Lemurians, is because you had told me that you had some on your show.
You know what? I learned a lot about the Lemurian culture. I learned that there's, it's Mount Shasta is a cave in there, and they can put, I don't think there's like 100,000 Lemurians could be in there. But that's just one of the many mountains throughout the world that Lemurians are in. A very advanced society. The gentleman I was talking to was a hybrid that his grandfather was had been a full-blooded Lemurian, and his great-grandmother had
Was a freak?
had been human.
Sorry.
And so that
He's
was
listening right now and is just fuming.
I know, that's terrible.
That's right. He did say that they get shorter with each generation if they've been intermarried, because Lemurians, of course, are
Right.
very tall.
Oh, yeah.
I had 2 or 3 shows that were really interesting. All of them were interesting.
It's a
but some of them,
diplomatic way to say it.
well, you know what? You can't, as you know,
Yeah.
you can't start drilling down into this too far with people.
Well, though, you invite somebody on to tell you their story and their opinion. I mean, I'm not an investigative journalist.
That's right. And
that's not
Right.
what
That's
I'm
right.
here for.
I ask the questions, and they give the answer, and we move on to the next question. The ones on Bigfoot, I had some real experts on Bigfoot in here talking about the Sasquatch, how this is a worldwide phenomena, that it's not just up here in Northern California and the Northwest. All types of examples of proof. Hair that had been found, samples of they had done all the research and trying to isolate what kind of hair it was, and they couldn't do it. It wasn't found to be of anything that was that was known.
Right.
The sounds of the animals at night, the howling, the loud screeching at night. Which is unlike any other animal, according to the experts. The different footprints, the fact that they're seen in so many places.
Right.
I don't question the fact that we've got there's a lot of cameras and everything out there, that things flying overhead, because I don't think there's been any real photographs besides that one video.
Right.
They made
Patterson, Gimlin.
that one video. But it was a very interesting show. I mean, you have to maybe not suspend belief, but you have to
Keep an open mind.
You have to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
That's entirely it, Kara. You have to keep an open mind. Another show we had was a lady from Yuba City that was a hybrid of a reptilian type of alien that also went back in her family. And I said, well, how come, doctors, when you get sick. Well, then I was informed that there's these little, they have groups throughout the United States that they go to doctors that are just like them. They don't go to doctors like.
They don't go to human
They
doctors.
don't go to they don't go to human doctors. They go to,
Interesting.
They go to their own, to the people that will be able to take care of them. So.
All right. So they are, huh.
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder how many of these hybrids are out there. But
Yeah.
of course we've had, talking on Bigfoot, we can talk on hybrids too. We've had quite a few of those.
I bet.
But or at least guess who believe in them. We've had one or two that were firm believers that maybe they were, I think. But
I think all we've ever gotten is maybe. I don't think we've ever gotten I am definitely a hybrid.
This was a woman out of Yuba City.
It's interesting.
Of course, Yuba City's a little strange sometimes. Anyway, but and she was, talked about it, talked about how they existed, talked about how they have their own inner network, and this is how they were able to go and not be found out because their internal organs are different and all this. Yeah, I mean.
So what about, one thing that we haven't gotten much of is conspiracy theories. A lot of our stuff has been paranormal, has been alien and stuff like that. Yeah. We haven't gotten too much of conspiracy theory, and did you get much of that?
Oh, yeah, I did a couple of the conspiracy theories. I have problems with conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. It is so difficult to keep a secret on something big. So when you start talking about 9/11,
oh, right.
That is a conspiracy that they put explosives in the buildings, and this was done like this, and that no plane hit the Pentagon, and they ratchet up their facts. I have a real problem with conspiracy theories because it makes you wonder, and 19 men couldn't have brought down the two towers and hit the Pentagon,
right?
In all these, and because it makes people feel powerless. And that's what conspiracy theories, in my opinion, are about a lot of times. People don't want to feel powerless.
No, they don't, but we sure eat them up.
Oh, yeah.
So, maybe we do a little bit.
Well, it's a kind of
or
thing.
People like to maybe know who the enemy is when they do feel powerless, and maybe that's it.
You know what? The one conspiracy theory, and gosh, I don't know how many that it goes by all the time, is the assassination of JFK. We had probably 2 shows on that.
Yeah.
And that's the one where if there was more than one person involved with that, you could understand how that could happen.
Yeah, we've actually had that on, and
I had that exact experience. I went in expecting to be like, okay, whatever, the CIA killed him, like, sure. I wasn't expecting to believe, and he made a very compelling case.
Yeah, he did, that it was actually the mafia in response to, more so in response to his brother, and stuff like that. It was it was actually...
It made a lot of sense. I'm
did
not saying
make a lot
I
of
believed
sense.
it, but
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
And then and then there's gee, how did that happen? How'd this happen? I've seen a lot of gunshot wounds. Oh, look, his head jerked this way. Well, sometimes that happens. If you're shot from the back, your head jerks back.
Right.
But there were other things that went along with it, including the theory was that he was accidentally shot by a Secret Serviceman that was getting out of the car behind him, and the final shot came from there. So, but that was, I'm kind of like you, Cara. That one was pretty compelling with all the things they brought into it. So if there was one conspiracy theory that I would really have to think that, okay, maybe this was a set job.
Right.
I still haven't figured out, though, the Lee Harvey Oswald part of it. It was so much of a patsy, but they got him to take a shot from there.
He was a commie.
Well, he was a commie.
I don't know if he was a commie.
Well, but,
they say he was a commie.
Well, he lived in Russia, and the guy was a loser. And then, but the thing about it is that he took a shot at that general. I think his name was Walker, in Louisiana several weeks before that, and either wounded him or missed. But that was the part that nobody ever really addresses. That the fact, you know what? This wasn't his first time. He had taken a shot at, and this guy was a real hard right wing guy.
Right.
So that was probably
Oswald was, or the guy
no, the guy he shot
at.
This, this general who was a Louisiana politician was the one that he took the first shot at, and so was he being used this whole time and set up just for this one reason?
Right. Obviously, if that's the case, he was being used for
And people
several
say nobody can make that shot. Well, that's not true. I mean, they've had marksmen go up and they've redone the whole thing, and they didn't make it the first time.
Right.
But they made it the second time.
Right. And as we were saying during the news, I did see a ninja on TV chop a BB gun with a sword, and I really did see it. So somebody can make the shot.
Yeah.
Somebody
ninja.
can make the shot.
That's the only guy.
All right, you're listening to Carl Bott here on Radio Wasteland. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we do think are possible and the ones that we absolutely don't. You're listening to Radio Wasteland.
You're listening to Free Fire Radio 96.5 FM, 1460 AM. You're listening to Radio Wasteland with Chauncey and Kara. Find all our shows and archives by visiting Radio Wasteland at radiowasteland.us.
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Carl Bott. All right, so there are so many of these things out there, I figure we're going to have to speed through them and get through them. During the break, we were talking about, were we talking about geoengineering in general or just chemtrails?
Just the chemtrails.
The chemtrails, all right. So you're a no on the chemtrails.
I'm a no on chemtrails.
Are you a yes, no, or maybe where are you at on those?
Oh, I'm definitely a no on, chemtrails or a government plot. I think, there is geoengineering technology. Technically, cloud seeding is a thing. I have a hard time believing that it's being used on a global scale to change the climate without anyone's knowledge.
Yeah, I personally believe that if we were actively basically affecting climate through weaponry or through anything like that, that it would immediately lead to a world war. Here we are more technologically advanced with a lot more money, and if we started manipulating the climate for our benefit, all these other countries, regardless of how pissed they were at one another, would get together and come and get us, because we would be in a situation where we would be able to manipulate the climate for our benefit. We would be the James Bond supervillains.
Well, yeah, and then and there's enough technology out there. If they thought that, imagine the Chinese or the Russians or the Swedes getting photographs of all this. Look what America's doing. You're right. It would trash us forever.
Right, and we would go after Russia if they were doing it. We would go after China.
The world. If you're making this, the climate change and through all this, the world's going to turn against you. And this has been going on supposedly for 60-something years. The chemtrails, and I just have a real problem with the whole logistics side of it.
All right, moon landing.
Yes.
Yes, no, or maybe.
Oh, of course they landed on the moon. But there are people. Yeah, I know they still don't believe it, and I'm just appalled at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we landed on the moon.
Yeah. Okay. And personally, for me, moon landing falls into the same category, as I've said 1,000 times on the show before, as trying to tell me that dinosaurs didn't exist. I'm not having it. I was a young boy. I grew up. I was inspired by landing on the moon, and dinosaurs. Don't try to tell me that stuff doesn't exist. I get angry. That's a no. All right. Vaccines. That's a big one here.
Well, what about vaccines?
Okay.
Do they cause autism? No.
Are they bad? Should they be mandatory for polio? Let's get specific. Should vaccines be mandatory for polio? Mandatory.
Okay. Yeah, I guess. I don't feel too strongly about that, but I would say I guess. Yeah.
All right. You don't have
I
to
think-
answer.
well-
I'm not looking to put you on the
No,
spot.
I look at it like this. I've talked to people that are very reasonable people that have had impacts of vaccines in their lives.
Yeah.
And the things that polio, we wiped polio out. That was a vaccine. So should all vaccines are all bad? No, of course not. I think the main problem that some people have is so many of them at such a young age.
Right.
They can get 40 or 50 inoculations before they're 2 years old. And so the question is, even though I had a doctor sit right here and he was just saying, he says, nope, it's not true. He says they're not going to react with each other. They're not going to do this. I mean, this guy, this is what he does. So,
Right. Yeah, but my wife is one of those people who has actually had a negative reaction to the flu shot.
It's
to
possible.
the stuff.
well, the flu
It's
shots,
rare,
I
but
can
it's
understand because
possible.
they're putting the virus into your body, and some people can be very susceptible to that.
yeah, and it,
Well, I think that's how all vaccines work.
Well,
right?
that's true, and there
they're
are,
all basically the same thing.
and people are going to
just
react
kinda-
to it in different
Right,
ways.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there is like I don't know what the percent chance is of developing autoimmune problems from vaccines. Because
The thing that gets me is I'm older than you all. I came up in the time where our moms got us all together over at Johnny Lewis's house because he had the measles, and
Right,
we all
drop
go in
the
there,
sick kid
and
on
we'd
you.
all go over there and sit in a room with him. And so, I mean, and we,
Right.
we lived.
right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a disease. It's it's known as not a disease.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Yeah.
Well, my mom was old enough to be my grandmother. She was born in 1936. She actually had polio.
Yeah, I tell you what, I grew up with polio,
Yeah.
and I remember Jonas Salk when that happened. We were given shots for that, and because there were people that we knew in our in my parents' circle that the kids had polio, so it was a huge benefit to mankind.
Okay, here's a fun one.
okay,
Pizzagate.
I don't think there was pedophilia going on in that one. Okay.
yeah, I don't think that's a real thing.
All right. So here's one that I definitely do believe, and I think we covered earlier. Of the conspiracy theories, I personally say that the two that I really do believe is that there has to be life out there somewhere.
Sure.
No matter what, I thoroughly 100% believe that somewhere out there there is life. I also believe that while probably loosely formed, there is some sort of money-driven, corporate-driven shadow government. There is some sort of group of rich and powerful people that have a lot more power and control over what goes on and what changes than they should. Those are the two that I definitely believe. What's your take on those two?
I think there is. I've already said. I think there's life out there someplace. I'm not sure of what level they are. I mean, they could be watching us right now. We could be their reality show. They just watch what happens here on Earth, and
Or they could be an algae.
yeah, or they could be an algae out
Right,
there.
yeah.
The one about a shadow government, I think that there's very powerful people out there that they can control, or if not control, they can push things in certain directions. I think the media is the large
absolutely.
media companies. They can push things in the directions they want,
Oh,
and
very much
we've
so,
been
yeah.
watching that
Yeah.
over the last 20 years.
I think we watch it heavily on both sides.
On
and
both
I don't-
sides.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
people, for some reason, only see it on the other side.
No, it's used.
I would have to. I don't even see that as a conspiracy theory. Like, lobbying is a thing that to me basically just looks like kind of legalized bribery, basically, and all the major news outlets are owned by people who
Well, when I
who
say
own
it,
them to make
I mean
money, like
controlling elections, controlling. I think that they have more
okay.
control. Over
It
the
depends on
than
how
we-
you're saying it.
Well, I
Exactly.
think what you're really going to be seeing in the next election is the social media, because there's only 3 people that control most of the social media,
Oh, absolutely.
and that
Yeah.
and if they want to isolate one candidate and push the other candidate, they can do that, and that will have a severe impact.
Well, Republicans are pushing on Google right now for precisely that reason.
And, no
Yeah,
no
good.
company like that should have. I'm not into breaking up things, but if they broke up the steel companies because they had control over all the steel industry.
AT&T.
Teddy
Well,
Roosevelt.
Well, Google is
Yeah.
a monopoly, basically.
It
it's the
essentially
same
is.
exact
And
situation.
at what point are people going to say, you know what? There's way too much power here because they literally can control what you see, and you don't even know it. And then they come out and they pay a $5 billion fine for something they've done.
Right.
Nothing. What is that? The interest for 3 hours?
Yeah, they make it back in a week.
Absolutely. Oh, all right. So we're right here at the end of the show. I want, of course, this is your station. Your show is the flagship of this station. But maybe for those listening in the evening, maybe you can tell us what your show in the mornings is really all about, and maybe they'll tune in.
Well, you know what? Our show in the morning from 7 to 9 a.m. It's a community radio show. We have people of all persuasions coming through, whether they're far liberal or far right. We try to treat everybody there as a guest as we would in a house, like having coffee. And there's no anger in there. There's just an open discussion of things. Our elected representatives are all on the show once a month. Our law enforcement is on. If people are trying to raise money for good things, we back the Blue, or if it's One Safe Place or any of those, they're always welcome here. Plus businesses, we put a lot of small businesses on because this is our community and we want to treat the people here. We do not endorse people on elections, on the local elections, or because they're all kind of our neighbors. Right. So and people, and it gives them an hour to listen to these people and ask questions and see what they're really about. It's not a 30-second blip on the TV or a news story.
Right.
So that's what we do.
Radio Town Hall.
Radio Town Hall. Yeah. That's it.
Awesome. All right. So you've been listening to Carl Bott here on Radio Wasteland. Thank you for checking us out. All right. Welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We've been talking to our guest, Carl Bott, the proprietor of this here establishment. I noticed he didn't show up with drinks, but that's all right. Carl, I've had two realizations about Carl being on the show. One is there's a lot more high strangeness going on here locally than I thought, and maybe I should chase some of that down. Anybody out there listening, out there in Facebook land or whatever else, if you know some high strangeness, hook us up, man.
I am desperate for weird things happening in Reading. I want to be there. I want to be taking pictures of it. I want to be eaten by goblins.
Totally. Totally. You're going to have to put on some weight, Goblins don't want to eat.
That's what I'm doing wrong. All the things that go bump in the night are like, ugh, I'm off my diet. Thank you. What is the celery stick human?
Right, totally. I don't eat vegetables. Wait, sorry. Did that sound like a mental insult? Yeah, the other thing that I realized about having Carl on is that the Believe It or Not Believe It with a guest roundtable is pretty funny and pretty fun. That's a good one to have. So what we need to do is
do that more often.
Local politicians in here and basically have a roundtable of Believe It, Not Believe It, Pizzagate go, vaccines go, What do you think?
I think vaccines are the only one where you're going to get an answer that is not, the mainstream.
I don't know. Aliens,
I guess
Bigfoot, we're at the home of Bigfoot encounters.
I know, but I think it is still at least the conventional wisdom is that you don't admit that you believe in that stuff if you're holding office.
Who's somebody who's locally famous here? When you think of locally famous Reading person, who do you think of?
I mean, I guess our representative, Doug LaMalfa.
All right. We need to get LaMalfa to come on a show.
Yeah, LaMalfa wants to come on a paranormal conspiracy show.
Yeah, and talk out of his LaMalfa. Has he ever been on this station, Jared? Hey, he's been here.
Oh, okay, but...
He's on once a month.
He's on once a month. He's already here.
All right. All right, so we ask him if he believes in, geoengineering.
Yeah, we'll just lie to him until he's sitting here. We're not going to tell him what we're going to do. All right, who else famous here in town?
Okay, yeah.
Famous
that's
local
the
person.
obvious answer.
Jared, who do you think of when you think of famous local Reading person?
Megan Rapinoe.
Oh, my God.
Oh, Megan Rapinoe. She's probably a little too famous. I think
she's...
We'll get LaMalfa. I don't know if we're getting Megan Rapinoe, but that's a good one.
That would be so awesome, though.
Yes.
It would just be me talking over you, gushing about how awesome she is for.
I think it would be
60
a lot
minutes.
like Bernie Sanders in the sense that you would ask her a bunch of questions, but all she would do would be go off about the current government and how much it sucks.
That's what I would ask her about.
Yeah. Have you noticed that no matter what you ask Bernie Sanders about, everything is about how big business is taking jobs away and ruining people's lives? It's like you can ask him about anything, and it somehow comes back to that. And don't get me wrong, when it comes back to it, I'm all, you're right, that is going, but everything, it's like that's his.
In fairness, big business does connect to literally every aspect
I guess
of
so.
human existence.
It is big business, so it's
it's
what do you
big
expect?
business, not
Right.
middling sort of medium-ish business.
All right, so that's all the famous. All right, Facebook land. If you can think of anybody famous and stupid enough to come on the
We
show,
should
to
have
a-
Meg Rapinoe and Doug LaMalfa on at the same time.
Oh God, because I don't even know what Doug LaMalfa believes in. I assume he's.
I don't know, but he's very conservative.
That's what I mean. I assume he's conservative.
Yeah.
Very conservative. Yeah. All right. So, So, what'd you think of Carl?
I mean, I like Carl.
You can be honest. He's not here now. He's not here now.
I agreed with pretty much everything he said, actually. I didn't necessarily expect to, but I don't know. We weren't talking politics, but
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I think the way he must have approached the show must be very similar to how we approached it, which, I think you kind of have to. You're not going to be a firm, hardcore believer in everything that comes on the show, but
Right.
in order to, just logistically speaking, have a paranormal show, you can't be trying to cross-examine everyone who comes on.
Well, I was telling my wife this is why you and I will never truly succeed. And that's because, have you noticed
There's a plethora of reasons, but go on.
that everything that is on the radio, they all have these hardcore opinions. They all got everything just figured out.
Right.
And, it's like...
We're too ambivalent. We're too circumspect of people to succeed at talk radio.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Right, yeah. We need to push an agenda,
That's true.
Do you have an agenda?
I think people should give me personally money.
Yeah.
I'm-
That's why you need an agenda.
Maybe we can work. Maybe we can workshop that.
All right, yeah. Because I don't know if I have an agenda. Like, what do I? And politics doesn't really count because for one, that's all sucked up, and for two, it's hard to be with politics because like if I say I don't believe in something, I'm automatically put in the other camp that has a lot of things that I don't necessarily believe either.
Right. Exactly.
And people go, oh, you're a centrist, and I'm all, no, I'm not in the middle. I have opinions about the way the world should run. It's just
Right.
not part of these two tribes. It's like I believe that all men are created equal, and that gays should marry, and that they should push and make sure that there are equal rights and opportunities for minorities. And I also think that we shouldn't pay $60 for a hammer. I'm like very conservative when it comes to the fact that we're spending our money stupidly. But that doesn't mean that I'm not willing to spend my money to help feed people. What it means is I'm not willing to pay 37 middlemen along the way. I think we need somebody, I think we need a government. Here's my new platform. All right, I got something for you.
You've got an agenda?
I got an agenda.
Let's hear
Okay,
it.
my new platform is the creation of a new government agency.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Space Force. No, wait, not Space Force. No, a
You're a
government
little late.
a government agency that basically just goes around to government agencies and looks at the money that they spend and says, you're fired because that is ridiculous. Not what they spent it on. They don't go around and say, well, you shouldn't have given money to these people who aren't working, or you shouldn't have done this for these people. That stuff's all taken care of by law. This agency needs to go around and say, you shouldn't have spent $10,000 on a desk. You're fired. It's like the migrants at the border. I saw in the news that they were paying $750 a night per migrant.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just all like, what?
They don't even have, clean water.
They're
And-
intense.
yeah.
Right? They're intense with no clean water. And that's obviously, there is a crime going on here, and it is not being discussed, That is insane. spending, just insane spending.
I agree.
You know, and so we need a government agency that's basically, you know, the Department of reel that crap in.
See, I think the problem with that is that it's impossible to have an agency that has that authority without going back to Congress every time.
Right.
And Congress will be
And plus,
like,
who watches the watchers?
This
They'd be all,
is
you've been
made in my
taking
state.
private jets to fly around and check people's spending.
Exactly. I think, you know, my agenda is that we should overthrow the government, seize the means of production, and create, you know, state-owned versions of every business and guarantee, you know, all basic needs to everyone, from each according to need to each, or from each according to ability to each according to need, all that.
So you're a commie.
Yes.
All right. You're a commie.
See, I don't even have to describe my agenda because it's simple. I just say the label.
Right. You got to be all, my agenda is that I'm a commie.
I usually say communist, but
Right.
okay.
Well, part of me is a commie as well. You know, there are aspects of me that are a commie. I do want some health care.
Yeah.
My copay right now is $1,700
Oh, yeah.
a month.
Yep.
My God. You know, it's like, that's insane.
Yeah, 20 years ago, healthcare was not another rent.
No.
And now
That's
it
more
is.
than my rent and car payment put together.
Yep.
That's insane. All right.
Yep.
All right. So next week, let's talk about what we got going on.
Okay. Yeah, that's enough of that.
Next week, our guest is N.K. Kranda.
All right.
I think her first name is Nikita, but she
Okay.
goes by N.K.
Okay.
And she is a experiencer expert. So basically, she's going to come in, and she's probably going to talk to us about a couple of experiences, but she has one specific that she'd like to discuss with us, and I don't really know what it is, but I do know that she's a pretty big wig in the world of radio interviews, so I'm kind of excited to hear the experience. Are you confused as to
okay.
what kind of experience?
Yeah, is it aliens, ghosts,
Alien
getting...
abductions.
Okay, yeah.
Abductions and alien experiences. But we're talking like not experiences like I saw one, but experiences like
They probed me.
I'm sterile now. You know,
Yeah.
it's something intense like that, you know.
Okay.
So I'm really excited about this because she's definitely, you know, she's Alien Con. She's been, you know, one of the,
Yeah.
what do you call the stage people that sit up there and take questions?
The panelists.
Yeah, panelists. She's been panelists at a lot of stuff. And so, you know, she's a big
Cool.
wig. And she's friends with, or at least has been on Ryan Sprague's show a couple times, Somewhere in the Skies.
Most
And
excellent.
what'd you say?
Most excellent. So yeah, we're getting someone with some clout on here.
Instead of Carl. Yeah, I feel comfortable poking at Carl because
Yeah.
it's in the same way that I feel comfortable poking at William.
He only carries a gun.
He does. He does
That's
carry
fine.
a gun at all times. I should probably not. All right, you've been listening to Radio Wasteland, and we'll see you next week.